As someone who has grown to over 18,000 followers on TikTok, one of the most common questions I get asked is, how do you get to Japan in business class? And I hate being the bearer of bad news to a lot of these people, but I have to tell you, you're basically chasing after a unicorn. So in this video, I am here to tell you 5 hard truths about trying to book a lie flat business or first class seat using miles, as someone who's been in the credit card stuff for over 7 years and has gone to Japan twice doing this. By the end of this, you'll know exactly how many miles I used, how much cash I still had to pay, and most importantly, all the trouble I had to go through to make this happen, so that you can kind of get an idea of the obstacles that will await you if you try to do the same thing. But fear not, wait till the end, and I am going to give you resources and recommendations so that I leave you with some actionable steps that you can still take to make this happen for yourself. Harsh truth number 1, Japan is the holy grail of award booking. Everyone and their mom wants to do it, and here's me taking my mom back in 2023. So the award flight availability on certain routes with popular carriers like ANA, it's pretty much non-existent these days. You're competing with everyone else in the points and miles game, a lot of who have been doing this for a while, and they mark their calendars down to the hour to make sure they grab the seats as soon as they become available. On top of that, ANA has actually stopped releasing more than 1 seat in first and 1 seat in business for a lot of routes. So while you may see a lot of deals that come up on social media about business class flights, especially to places like Europe where you have lots of destinations to land into, Japan is in a league of its own for being how difficult it is to go there. Harsh truth number 2, you have to be flexible just to even have a shot at booking something. Something that's overlooked, especially by newbies, is that when you're trying to book these redemptions and these sweet spots, that means you're gonna have to fly out of a very specific set of airports, usually hubs for different airplane alliances. So if you don't already live in one of these airports, that means that you're gonna have to take a short hop repositioning flight just to get the journey started. In my instance, that means I still will have to book a short flight from Atlanta to Boston just to get the trip to Japan rolling. Harsh truth number 3, it's gonna cost you a lot of miles, a lot. Even if you could find these elusive ANA round trip business class, that's still 90,000 miles per person, and believe it or not, that's actually a good deal. So keep that in mind when you are fighting about 1 to 3x back on daily spend, and that's why this guy is always trying to push you to get welcome offers, because big chunks of points are the only way that you're even gonna have a chance of making a business class flight happen. And just how elusive is ANA round trip business, especially for 2 people? I couldn't find it. I've been doing this stuff for years. I know what to do, where to look, and even I still couldn't find availability. So instead, I opted for another way where it cost me even more miles, but in exchange, I got peace of mind. And the final total is I had to spend 356,000 Amex points in order to transfer those to Cathay Pacific and book a Japan Airlines flight. Harsh truth number 4, even though I had to pay a lot of miles, I still have to pay out the wazoo when it comes to taxes and fees. And unfortunately, that is an unavoidable part when you're trying to book with miles. There are always surcharges, and especially if you try to get a premium cabin that is above economy class, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. While it's not as high as some of the absurd ones I've seen that are $1,000 per person, this particular still cost me $553 in taxes per person. But just as a point of reference, if you were to pay cash for the exact flight that I'm taking, it would take $9,120 cash. So I think I'm still getting a pretty good value at the end of the day. Harsh truth number 5, going back to the flexibility, you have to book this stuff way in advance, like basically a year out. In my instance, I booked 353 days out just to grab these 2 seats. Remember, you're competing with everyone else who's trying to do this with miles, especially if you want to go in the good seasons like spring or fall. And I ended up going with Cathay Pacific over British Airways just because I was able to get access to the seats a few days later, even though it would have saved me some miles to try to do it with British Airways. The only other alternative, especially for those of you who are flexible, a lot of the airlines will release another wave of seats when you're about 3 or even 2 weeks out from the departure date. So that's something to keep in mind, but remember, these aren't guaranteed and there's no telling how many seats, if any, they will release for an airport that you might be looking at. So you see all the stuff that I had to go through, it's not easy by any means, but I'm here to show you the truth behind all this because I don't want you to be caught off guard when you're listening to all the romanticizing you see on social media about trying to get to Japan and with miles and business class, and these people are sipping on their champagne and their beds in the sky. Like, I've done that stuff, but I'm here to tell you it takes a lot of work to make it happen. But me being me, I now want to give you actual resources that you can use so you can still be one of the few people that gets to enjoy what this hobby has to offer. Tip number 1, follow this account on Instagram, Find Flights For Me. They do an incredible job of posting deals for miles, and just last week they had 2 different ones that went out for Japan. And these were way more reasonable windows, like 3 to 6 6 to even 8 months out, which works for a lot of people, and you don't have to try to do it a year in advance like I did. Resource number 2, sign up for a free newsletter from a site called Point Hound. I just did this myself, but I've heard a lot of good things from other people who use them. And if you want to do a paid subscription, I've also heard really good things about Thrifty Traveler, especially from some of the more experienced people in the credit card game. Resource number 3, the site that I always use and a lot of people love is Seats.arrow. I have the paid version, but you can play around with the free one just to see how user-friendly and comprehensive it is. They even have a special tool just to find first-class seats for JAL and ANA. And resource number 4, if you just want to say, I don't want to deal with all this, there are plenty of booking concierge services that you have to pay to book it for you. And if you want one that I can recommend, a guy that I've been using for a while that's had really good results and good feedback, leave a comment below or just send me a message and I'll be sure to send you his way. He even charges a little bit less than the big guys, but remember, I just showed you all the reasons and all the hoops I had to jump through, so it's not an easy process and don't expect miracles. If you found any of this useful, please feel free to subscribe. As a YouTube newbie, it helps me a lot even when just one person joins along on this journey with me. If there's any other kind of topics you want me to cover or questions about what I went over today, please feel free to ask and I'll be sure to follow up on it. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.